Hello and welcome to another edition of RSF Radio. I'm your host, Joe Monday, and this is the podcast where we talk about what's been going on the front page of RF Street Fighter and the general world of the FGC. But today, I have a very special guest, the former director of esports at Capcom, Michael Martin. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. There's a lot going on that front page, isn't there?
You know what? It wasn't as bad on Reddit as it was on Twitter. I will say that much. And
for sure.
And to that end, I'm like kind of proud of the sub in some ways, but in other ways, I have also seen the mod queue, and I have seen things. I've seen footage.
You've looked into like the darkness, and it's staring back at you.
This is to be fair, that's most days. But yesterday and today, especially heinous, which we'll get into why that might be here in a minute. But before we really dig into the meat of the episode, whenever I have a guest on, I always give them an opportunity at the start of the show to really pitch whatever you got going on. So is there anything that you want to kind of pitch right now? Anywhere where people can follow what you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're not familiar with me and you don't follow me on Twitter, that's the easiest place to find out what the heck I'm up to, at Bizarro_Mike, 1Z, 2Rs. And to that end, former director of esports at Capcom, meaning I left my job a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. We can probably talk a little bit more about that later, but as a result, in the time that I've been sort of taking a break as well as, looking for something else, I've just been streaming a lot. So, twitch.tv/BizarroMike, there's no underscore in that. And I've actually been streaming every day. I'm as Justin Wong puts it, I'm a consistent streamer right now.
That's fair. What kind of games are you streaming right now?
So, not fighting games.
Fighting games are hard to stream. It's not a consistent viewing of fighting games.
Yeah, right. And the thing is I have streamed fighting games before, right? And I think what you just hit the nail on the head. It's hard. It's hard to stream fighting games. It's hard to stream fighting games and stay engaged, for me anyway. And as someone who admits that I'm not the greatest at a lot of fighting games, it doesn't feel good losing a lot on stream. I mean, it doesn't. Look, we know fighting games, right? We're all used to this by now. We should know. Like, it doesn't feel good to lose, and those of us that stick around are the ones that weather that storm, right? For the sake of improving and whatnot. But it doesn't feel good to lose a lot, and especially on stream. And I feel like that's just not entertaining for me or a viewer. So I tend to stream lately a lot of like the Soulsborne games, like Dark Souls, Bloodborne. And just different games. I guess I'm a variety streamer, but I've been focusing on a lot of like the Soulsborne games and like Resident Evil and stuff like. Actually, also I've been playing a lot of Metal Gear Survive lately, and man, that game just got shit on, but it's actually pretty good.
I was gonna say I had only heard bad things about it, and from what I've seen of it, it's mostly like hiding behind a fence. And did the AI figure out how to walk around a fence?
That is a thing. But to be fair, that is not is clearly not, I think, the strength of the game. But that's not also why I like it. The action parts of it, it's kind of whatever. It's kind of everything else that I really appreciate about it. But in fairness, that game's launch did not go out over well. I think we can draw some parallels. And apparently, in the last year, it's been out for like 2 years. So I think in like the last year, they cleaned it up a lot. So it's okay. It's actually a pretty good game, considering it's a post-Kojima Metal Gear, which everyone, shot it down for in the first place.
Yeah, which, like, hey, how'd that Kojima shit work out in that new game? I'm sure that was pretty
not
good,
to turn this podcast into this episode into a Metal Gear podcast, but it's very weird to have played this game and Death Stranding and to actually see like DNA from those, like, in both of those games. Part of me, the conspiracy theory guy in me, is like, Kojima probably went to Konami and was like, yo, I want to make this game, and they're like, no, that's fucking stupid. We're going to make it a Metal Gear game. He's like, no, fuck you. I'm going to take my shit and go make a Death Stranding game. And there's a lot of like DNA in Metal Gear Survive that's also in Death Stranding. So yeah,
you can see the strands, what were left in each game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll go kill myself for that one. That pun was unwarranted and quite bad, to be honest.
Yeah, all right.
But no, all right. So that's cool. You get into that and streaming every day. So that is what you have going on. But what's going on in the fighting game community is, oh boy. Let's start this with timeline. I think a timeline might be best to set up here. Of a little over a week ago, Ono tweeted, it was before last Friday. He was like, you're going to get Seth on Friday, so look out for that. It's going to be great. But then next week, there's going to be an update with a netcode fix. And we were like, okay, cool. This is great. I'm saying that pretty like matter of factly, but the way that the tweet was worded was not as matter of fact, and I can understand why there might have been a little bit of confusion around that. But that happened last week. Seth came out, everybody was happy. We did our tournament on Monday, and then Tuesday, the patch comes out, and I wasn't on Twitter at that time, but if I was, like, it was one of those things where I got pulled into it. Someone was like, hey, you need to, shit is, I don't know if you know this, but like shit is on fire. I was like, let's just check and see if people are into that yet, because I haven't had time to download it yet. I'm off doing something else. And then I look at the internet, and oh boy, just, it is one of those things where I'm reminded of that quote of a lie will make its way around the world before the truth has a chance to get put on its pants. And that was Tuesday. That was Tuesday, as far as I'm concerned. And then also like a whole bunch of hate mail and oddly enough, here's like the weird thing is that like it pulls out some bigotry in a lot of weird ways. I feel like the same people who love that kind of outrage and drama just love to sneak in some hidden bigotry, right? Crouching outrage,
like the True Colors show.
Oh yeah, and it's just, I don't know why those things go hand in hand, but for whatever reason, anytime there is a big conspiracy or a big hoax, or whatever, anytime Capcom does anything that is released and announced that causes a stir within the community. It just always so happens that our mod queue's like, hey, there's a bunch of bigots. You should maybe, and then it's like, oh, thanks mod queue, I appreciate that, which is awesome. But the main thing that got people all screwed up was that there was a narrative that nothing happened in the netcode except for something changed to prevent the mods from working.
Right. Which,
like, if a game gets a title update or any kind of change to the netcode, one would think that the netcode mods would no longer function anymore. Like, there was things like when I read that initially in my mind, I'm like, well, obviously they would prevent them from working.
Right.
Like, even talking about a netcode fix prior to Tuesday, everyone any intelligent person I talked to was like, yeah, you'd have to disable those specifically so that people wouldn't have to go back and remove them from, just to make everything work together.
Right.
And then for whatever reason, people were like, nope, it's worse, it's bad, he took it away, don't believe him, don't believe his lies. And man,
and here we are. And
now you're listening to this on a Thursday, or maybe I'll release this on Wednesday night, but this is the Wednesday after,
right? Where
the cleanup crew has
not even 24 hours later.
No.
You, right?
Oh yeah, that is true. This is about 23-ish hours from.
Yeah, because I think the servers went down around 4-ish or something like that, and by the time they came back up, it was like in that maybe 5, 6, maybe 7 o'clock range. So of course you have like all the Tuesday shows hitting, and I mean, look, I love the Tuesday shows, but obviously it didn't help that kind of exacerbated like the narrative that was going around.
It really did. People using reaction clips
totally.
that may or may not be out of context, and also like not like having enough information, because that's like the thing. If someone came at me on a live show and said, hey, this is a thing that's true, and I'm doing a live show and I'm preoccupied with doing the live show, I'm not going to be like, hold the phone on, pump the brakes, let's do a check. I'll probably react to whatever people say to me.
Right.
in the moment, which, folks out there, don't you fucking lie to me. Don't you fucking lie to me, folks. My eyes on you. I keep that shit in mind.
Yeah.
And I don't trust no liars, but... And so Wednesday happened. The cleanup crews have kind of come through, which is not actually... Here's the thing that we can maybe get into. As a former Capcom employee, granted, this was not your job.
Sure.
Your job was not community management. A lot of people get this confused with anyone who they know what works at Capcom. Community management is also their job. It's like one of you actually never get to leave the office because you are always community manager, but that is actually not true of anybody. It was Andy's job for a little bit while you were still working there, and then it
so to even, I guess, make it more clear and specific, I guess the only real community manager there is, at least on the fighting team side, is Matt Edwards, which he's a Capcom, Europe, right?
Right.
Street Writer.
The Street Writer.
For those, yeah. Now, sometimes I don't even know what that means because, Matt does a lot of things too, right? And as an employee at any company like that, you do a lot of things. But at Capcom USA, there is actually not a community manager. For any of the brands, there are quote-unquote community people, but they're not really community managers. Now, that doesn't mean they don't do, community management, because, of course, I think, like you just described, we kind of all do in certain ways at certain points. But even excuse me, Andy, like myself, I saw a great tweet a while back, and I apologize, I don't remember who tweeted it, but there was a great sort of thread about the difference between social media management and community management. Essentially what we were doing was social media management. Now, is there obviously aspects of community management and all that? Yes, right. But as far as our jobs go, it was more focused on the social media management part of it.
Yeah, it's weird how and I'm not trying to make you say anything about Capcom here, but I'm just saying that it is one of those things that is almost expected of your job that you're not getting paid for. That happens in this is not just true of Capcom. This is true of other companies as well.
Sure.
When people know the people who work at the companies, they expect them to toe the company line, and that, I don't know, there's
repercussions
for talking as yourself on your own quote unquote private Twitter account, versus, which is where apparently the FGC all goes to have conversations, and then they kind of expect that level of communication with everybody. Whereas from my experience with working with people from this isn't even just true of you, but of everyone I have ever worked with or talked to at Capcom previously, before you even joined, is the amount of information that you have is often not the most up-to-date information of what people come to me as a moderator asking, do we know this stuff? When's this thing coming out? What will it look like? What are the actual patch notes? And I have to be no one at this office knows the answer to that, and I'm not even at that office, and I know that. I know that.
It's interesting because that is a large part of it, and for me personally, in my time there, I also sort of try to, I guess, put blinders on to a lot of the game development side, at least in the sense of, and I don't, I'm not trying to call anyone out or anything, but it does get old when you work for a company and you go to an event and hundreds of people come up to you at every event and are like, "Yo, what's in the season pass? What's in the update? What's in the, what's coming next? Which character is this character that, and so it gets to a point where I'm just like, you know what? I don't like lying to anyone anyway. So I'm just going to not pay attention to what the dev team's doing or the marketing team's doing until it's time, for an announcement to go out at the event itself. Hey, I'm going to be as surprised as you are. The Seth trailer at Capcom Cup is a fantastic example of that because I was blown away by that trailer and I'd never seen it before.
That's kind of where you and me differ, in that I love lying. I love to lie. Lying is great. Where I feel like if I were in that position, And here's why I'll never get hired for any kind of job like this. It's because I'm admitting this into a microphone right now.
You're gonna troll everyone.
100%. If people be like, "So what's in the season pass?" I go, "You know what? Everybody gets a suit. Boom." Yo, what can we get who's getting a costume? Zangief's getting a princess dress. You bet.
That should have been the Devilot costume right there.
Who's coming up next? They're putting Big the Cat in Street Fighter V. Don't tell anybody. I'm only telling you.
You're finally getting your guest character.
I'm only telling you, random person who I literally just met. They're putting Big the Cat in. He's got a fishing rod and everything. And that's the kind of shit that I would say. Only because, here's the thing. If I overcommit to that lie, then no one can possibly trust me. And therefore, I wouldn't have to pretend like even if I did know.
Yeah, there's no fear of like accidentally, spilling the beans or telling a truth, right? Like,
unless shit gets actually wild. And then Ono's like, surprise, I've been talking to Sega. Guess what? We got Knuckles and Big the Cat. Sonic crossover. We got Jim Carrey. He's in the game. He's in the game now.
Oh my God.
I could be down with Jim Carrey. Put Jim Carrey. No, maybe not. He's an anti-vaxxer.
Maybe not right
anyway.
Now.
That's kind of a long story behind that one. But anyway, not here to talk about that. Vaccinate your kids. Anyway, here to talk about the latest Netcode, because I think we should clear things up too, is that something did change in the current patch of the game.
Right.
Like the Netcode was modified in some way. It is hard to say, because here's like the whole thing about all of this is that I want to say the number of people who actually could tell the difference between, or like tell you what the actual difference was between the Ultimore patch and the Fluffy Sheep patch and what they actually did to the game was maybe even 80% of the people who listen to this show. Because, listening comprehension out there, I know some people out there, you a dummy, and it's okay. I still love you. All right. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. But like these things are complicated, right? And there's not a lot of people who might be able to tell that difference, but there's a lot of people who got opinions on Twitter.com. Let me tell you that. There's a big disparity of the people who have those opinions and the people who actually know the difference. But all that aside, something did change, and this was actually written from Mauve. Do you know Mauve on Twitter.com?
Yes. I saw that there was something posted, but I actually hadn't read it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the layman's summary, and I'll just read I'll read the layman's summary. Is that they shrunk the window in which it allows the game to drift off from the desired frame differential. That said window now scales based on ping to the other player. As a consequence, it's more aggressive about resyncing timing into the intended range mid-match. So it continues to resync, which is a thing that both patches kind of did in a way. But this does it in this specific way. That leads to some problems still. There is one-sided rollback. There is sometimes unstable matches with unstable ping get kind of hairy. And it's neither the Ultimore patch or the Fluffy Sheep patch, which if you talk to anyone who used both of those patches, results varied in use of those patches anyway. And anyone who would think about that comprehensively would go, okay, yeah, people are still probably going to have issues with whatever this fix is, unless they spend like an actual fuck ton of time on this and try to like build it from the ground up and try and correct it. Then maybe there would be significant changes, but from like this is kind of as expected, and from the people who actually played it and tested it, there were, I would say, the majority was positive in terms of how they reacted to it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of was doing stuff last night, and I had Max's stream up and he played a bunch of matches, and it's kind of weird to see. I haven't personally tested it, but it's kind of weird to see the change post patch, because there's some weird stuff going on like in the backgrounds. But for the most part, the actual gameplay, the connections, whereas the other night he said he played, if you took like 10 of his matches, 6 out of the 10, 60% were, not great, right? Because of the netcode. Whereas, last night, most of his matches were pretty good. And this, of course, there's some drama, as we talked about, like how this was being talked about even before anyone tested the patch, right? Post patch.
But he was kind of one of the, and kind of like he got out in front of it and was like, and said some, not like talking shit, but also like didn't. Do we have to talk about deleting tweets? Do we have to? Should we get into that?
So let's get to that. But I think my point was that
finish the thought here.
He played his matches, and from what I saw, it worked out pretty well. The caveat though is, and just like if you pull this Mauve tweet up, where essentially the results are people with great connections or good connections are still going to have the better results, right? People that don't have good connections are still going to experience largely the same issues. If I was back home being Seattle, I actually rarely had issues playing Street Fighter V online. Most of my matches were pretty good and like ranked and whatever, right? My connections were usually pretty good, and I didn't get a lot of the outer regional stuff that we see. That stuff's still weird. I don't understand that, but whatever. Being down here in the Bay Area, you'd be surprised. When I have tried to play online, my matches aren't great. And so I feel that player's experience that is experiencing, that's getting the negative experience, right? Oh, geez, guard dog's going off.
That's all good. Would be the first time. But you do got to name that dog.
Roxy. Roxy's.
All right, Roxy.
Yeah, Roxy, the miniature pincher.
Mini pin Roxy.
Yeah.
Be friends with Brick.
Yeah. And so I think that what all of this kind of boils down to is expectation versus reality. And I mean, there are so many sort of like strands on this web when it comes to expectation, beginning with like the tweets. Honestly, even going back before that, beginning with like these dudes created these mods, which I'm not against. I think it's kind of cool actually that these dudes kind of found this thing out and created this mod. I can't speak for the dev team. I don't know if they were aware of like sort of the issues or the
thank you for saying that, because that was going to be my very next question.
I can't speak for them. I don't know if they were aware of these issues or like these potential solutions, right? I mean, if I'm being honest, I would think if they were aware of that, maybe they would have looked into that, because obviously we've been talking about netcode since day one. It's been the number one thing. You guys have handed over to me personally the list for like 2 years running, and I have shared that list. We've all shared it, intercompany, so it's not a secret, right? I would think that if this was a potential large enough fix, that maybe they would have addressed it. I don't know. What I'll say though is that these fixes from these mods obviously pushed them to look into it more, right? And hopefully they're going to continue to look into it more to find whatever solution there is to make this game better for everyone involved. But I think it's a good thing that they created. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing that these mods were made, because it caused action. And now a few weeks later, we're going back to expectation versus reality. I don't think everyone got what they wanted, but I still feel after last night they got something better than they had. Unfortunately, we just had to run into a brick wall head first before we realized.
It's just like it's kind of wild. Like it didn't have to be that way. Like it didn't have to at all.
It didn't. we obviously know you and I and anyone familiar with like the FGC and social media, especially on Twitter, that's how it is. Am I surprised by it? Of course not. I don't think most people are surprised by it. Am I disappointed, with some of the reactions? Sure. I mean, sadly, this seems kind of like status quo when it comes to a reaction for anything that Capcom does that is not, largely positive, right? But
Right.
I understand. I think we all understand the feeling and the sentiment. And again, this comes back to expectation versus reality.
Sure. And it's also, I guess I should also clear up, like, it's also not, I don't want to put it on anyone out there and say
Sure.
that any one person has like a personal responsibility to support Capcom and everything they do. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a responsibility to do that. Like, fuck Capcom. Sometimes y'all fuck up in some pretty extravagant ways, and I think that's fucking like I'm going to hold you to it when you done goof. I don't think this is a goof. I think the only goof here is the lack of communication right there, because
I want to take the word out of your mouth, and
there's nobody there to say anything, right? There's currently no employee that they could say, hey, officially this is the language that we're going to use, which a company would do if they had someone in that position. Right. Of they would give them a bullet point list of like, these are the things that you have to say here, say them. Yeah. But that person doesn't exist at the company right now. So
yeah, I mean, we've talked about this for a long time. I mean, I talked about this when I was in media. So this isn't, I mean, this is nothing new. And I think that was actually going to be kind of like that. I feel like yesterday and this overall conversation, at least in terms of this netcode and patch business, and it applies to a lot of things, obviously, but there's the implementation, so the expectation of what we're getting, and then there's the communication. And obviously, one way to either balance or temper the expectations versus reality is to communicate. And it's still a problem. I wish I had the answer. I wish I was part of the solution. If I'm speaking real talk, I feel like I failed in a lot of ways in regards to that. Even though if it wasn't, my direct responsibility or whatever, it still pains me to see the struggles. I'm not employed there anymore. I obviously know people. I obviously care about some people there. But I mean, I don't have to care about what's taking place, right? The problem is, or maybe not the problem, the issue is, I love Capcom and Street Fighter as much as the other, any other Street Fighter nerd, right? Or Marvel vs. Capcom nerd or whatever, right? Like, right. We love these games. And yes, we love these companies, sometimes to a fault. But also, having worked there and knowing people that are still there and everything, feeling like I don't know that I improved anything in terms of that particular communication. Obviously, I guess I didn't, because it's still an issue, and I really wish it was different. Because even though Ono tweeted that, and Ono's been more on, I guess, on top of sort of acknowledging the issues at hand. It just would have made things go over a lot better if you were more clear about what exactly was taking place in this patch. And you don't have to get into the nitty-gritty, because honestly, 90% of us don't understand it. I can read this Mauve tweet, I can read a tool-assisted tweet, and it's a foreign language to me. No idea what's being said here. But
yeah, that tool-assisted line of tweeting was
I saw
good.
that and I'm like, I don't know. You have to be a robot to understand this.
I think Arliath did a good job of making it readable to humans. He did a response to it, which is okay, this makes sense now. I can't understand. He helped translate the robot, which is good. But to your point, though, I should also state that, and I'm kind of maybe giving you a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt, but it's not as if Capcom and your bosses were giving you the tools necessary to complete that part of your job. Because I know right now that they're not giving those tools to Carolyn. If they did, if they said like, here's what changed, put this on Capcom Fighters, she would do that in a heartbeat. But it is also not her job to do that, even though, like, in her heart of hearts, that's what she wants to do. She wants, like, if she wanted to do that, I know that she would. And I might be putting words in her mouth right there, but, like, she gives a fuck in instances where she doesn't have to give a fuck, like times where she's helped out with the SFL to clear things up when, like, language might not have been very clear. Like, she stepped in and made sure that that shit was okay, even though that's not her job. But maybe it is now, actually.
I was gonna say that would fall more in line, I think, with what her job is or should be. But yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the tools. I mean, and nobody wants to get to the point where they're like going off the ranch, which we've seen that with some previous employees, right? And I, for the most part, don't feel like I did that. But I mean, in fairness, the last, I don't know, maybe not year, but like 6 months or so that I was there, I completely shut down. I kind of locked myself out of I only tweeted things about business when I had to, or if someone specifically was, tagging me, asking me a question, and a large part of that had to do with the fact that I guess to put it blunt, I lost kind of hope in the community. I was in Tokyo at Tokyo Game Show when I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was like, I don't think I care anymore. And that was when I decided I think I should leave and do something else.
Was there anything that sparked that, or was it just an overall sense of?
It wasn't like one particular thing. It's the constant barrage of negativity and toxicity, and I think also having to deal with things that, like, being promoted to director, I have more responsibility and whatnot, but I think we also just got hit with things. We had to deal with things that we just never had to deal with before. And, part of me is just like, God, we're just here to, like, do fun video game stuff. Yeah. I mean, there's money involved and everything, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's video game stuff. Right. And here I am now, I'm dealing with, like, conduct issues and, drama about this, that, whatever. And a person in my position now, I'm taking it from both sides. Like, the brand, there's crap going on with the brand, the Street Fighter brand, and like it's my fault, or like, come yell at Mike because he's the only public facing figure right now,
Right.
or issues with esports, and fuck Mike because of esports. I think it just wore me down, and I don't care what anybody says. I've seen people like, yo, I got thick skin. No, man. When you get worn down to the point, and it happens to everyone, where like, you don't care anymore. To me, it hurt. I legitimately was like, it pained me, because I'm like, the thing that I love the most, I'm not sure I care about anymore. Now, I'll say this: at Capcom Cup, okay, first of all, at any event, no one's ever talked trash to me. No one's ever come up to me and be like, yo, fuck you, whatever, right? It's mostly online, right? And it's mostly randos, whatever. It's the anonymity. I get it. It's the internet. But at Capcom Cup, man, all of, like, I was again reminded of why, I did what I did for the last couple years, or the last few years, whether I was at Capcom or even in media, right? That this community is amazing. It's the negativity isn't the majority. There are some absolutely amazing people in this community, including yourself, that do, awesome work, content creation, whatever, tournament organization, whatever, right? So that was like a tremendous feel good. Unfortunately, it was also my last event.
Right.
So it was like, I'm like, it's bittersweet, but I do love this community, and I do love Street Fighter, and I do love, you know, like Capcom games and whatnot. And to see, I'm not, I don't have to care about any of the stuff that's taking place, but to see it, it's the cycle, you know, to go through the cycle again.
Yeah,
it hurts.
I can relate to that on a lot of levels. Like, especially when you say, like, even right there at the end, the cycle, it's almost as if I had this idea earlier today, and I was trying to formulate it into a good hot take. I just couldn't I couldn't vocalize it or figure out a way to really package this in a way that people would understand. But it seems that since about 2008, maybe 2007, maybe a little bit before then, that the specific ways of which people are angry about fighting games has not changed. And it actually might go further back than that, now that I'm thinking about it. Like, the questions people ask and the ways that people get angry about fighting games, like, really hasn't changed all that much.
Sure.
And I don't know if, like, putting more resources out there to be like, hey, this is what you do to, like, to combat this kind of, like, mentality, this kind of behavior. Like, I don't know how to fucking fight that, because, like, even this cycle that you have worked at Capcom, like, this happened before, right? There is this, something happens at Capcom what impacts the community in some way. The community reacts by reaching out to you and yelling at the top of their lungs, and they need that blood. Along with that comes the people who are, like, extra hateful, but I feel like they only show up whenever the people who have like a ton of influence go off and say something, like, really, like, off the cuff, and just, like, not like they irresponsibly use their following to be like, fucking Michael Martin, what? Are you fucking kidding me with this SFL? Michael Martin? Are you fucking kidding me?
It's they weaponize their following. And you know, I mean, you know, there are certain people that
I've said that into this microphone so many times.
Even if they don't have a massive, like, Maximilian sized following, right? There are people that have targeted me long before I even worked at Capcom, and it became more than just, you know, a professional thing. It became very personal, and that's whatever, right? I've always said, and I try to make this clear to all of the players too, and myself, like, look, you don't have to like the game. I know why you're playing this game. Whether you like it or not, I know why you're playing it. And you don't have to like it. No one has to like this game. I'm okay with that. As an employee of Capcom, I'm okay with that. But how you present your dislike, or how you present, you know, whatever your issue is. My thing was always like, man, why do these guys always got to go to Twitter first about, yo, I haven't been paid from this event? Well, have you reached out to anyone first? No, of course not. They go straight to Twitter, right? And I'm like, I try to make it clear to these guys, like, look, if there's an issue with payment or whatever, come talk to me. I will try to figure out what is, you know, going on, right? And that's kind of where we're at. I think just that's sort of like a vertical slice of how the FGC uses Twitter, right? We'll just go, and honestly, that's just Twitter, right? You just go on a Twitter, you throw up your 140 characters or whatever the hell it is now, and walk away and let mayhem ensue, right? And it doesn't have to be that way, but in particular, like, you know, like, it's how you present it. And if you want to be like a toxic asshole, well, I don't have time for that anymore, and I'm probably just going to block you. So scream into the void, I guess. Yeah,
I don't know. And it's just one of those things, whenever something, like, it can be an innocuous thing, right? Like the Maximilian tweet, where it's really not that but then, like, later on in the tweet thread, he goes back and says, well, actually, this is what actually happened.
Sure.
But that kind of doesn't matter.
That kind of strikes me as almost like a media 101 thing, where someone wants to get the news story out first, or they want to get their like, you know, their hot take out first, right? And I don't think
then the revision happens.
yeah, right. And don't get me wrong, I've spent many hours talking with Max. Like, last year at Evo, we talked till like 6 a.m. You know, one night, one morning.
Sexy.
Yeah. And I understand where Max is coming from. That guy loves this stuff as much or more than anyone, right? By the way, congrats to Maximilian. He's going to be a dad.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, congratulations, Max.
And so I get where he's coming from. And I don't think he does this stuff maliciously. I don't think he goes like, I'm going to throw up this tweet to,
No. No.
Like, that's not Max. I think I know Max well enough to, to feel that way. And even like, during his stream, and he and I have talked about it too, like he talks about the fighting game team and the issues and why things are still whatever, blah, 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 whatever. I know that comes from a place that like, he loves this stuff and he wants to see it better. I think we all do. I mean, me too. Right. I've just had the unique position of being like on the other side of it or on the inside of it, I guess.
Right.
So I don't think it's an issue, but I don't think it's as big a deal that someone tweets something or that Max tweets something like he did.
Right.
And, people are calling for, well, he should delete it. I can see both sides. Part of it is like, sure, but the damage is already damaged. The damage is already done, whatever, right? It's already out there. And I think my thing is like, this is kind of why I don't want an edit function on Twitter, right? Like, I think if you put something out there, it's out there. Let it stand out there. Can he do a better job of walking back on it? Maybe he'll address it in a stream. I don't know. But then there is like, the really weird takes, that, people put out there. They're just like, yeah, that probably wasn't necessary. And it's probably better you just delete that.
Well, here's my perspective on it is that I am on the side of things like that, which are damaging, which you no longer subscribe to, should be deleted because people have the ability to quote tweet it, which then becomes shared and it becomes weaponized. It can be framed in a way that people are using your words to further whatever message they want. You no longer have control of it at that point. Even if where you stand on it is different, people don't go into the thread and read that if it's housed in a way that someone says, here, look at this is bad. And it's those kinds of people who seem to speak up the most whenever things like this happen, and that can be really damaging. And that's the kind of people in the specific situation where people are like legitimately threatening or like explicitly dangerous or bigoted or things like that, where it can be more dangerous. And to be on the safer side of things from like a moderation point of view, I'm in the camp of killing things. Don't let the ammunition live.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can agree with that. I think Brian F deleted some of his tweets. Brian he's a good dude, but
Brian's a very smart guy.
He's a very smart guy, and he can have opinions, and that's fine. But I mean, he deleted his tweets, and to be honest with you, my first thought when I saw a lot of this, I don't know, conversation, if you can even call it that, at the beginning was, so who's going to be the first one, or who are going to be the ones to actually be like, oh, you know what? Sorry guys, I was wrong. And there's been some of that. Brian, it was one of those guys. Again, I don't want to make this about Max only, but I don't know that Max is. I haven't seen that Max has specifically done that, other than like, oh, you know what? It turns out it was not as bad as we thought.
Yeah, he made statements on his stream.
Okay, so that. I mean, again, the issues here are a patch rolled out. There wasn't great communication about it. Everyone jumped, to these conclusions, and here we are a day later, and and
some death threats later, just a couple death threats later, and
it feels like the discussion now is more about how did we handle this, which is probably, it's a good thing, I guess. Yeah. I don't know that anything really comes of it. I don't know that anything changes, but the it feels like the larger discussion now is how do we continue to handle these things as a community versus, what this thing actually was.
Right.
That was the discussion, I guess, yesterday, but we didn't know. Nobody knew what it was.
What do you think that Capcom could or should be doing in situations like this? Do you have an opinion or like?
So it's tough, right? Because every business, it's not just Capcom. It's everyone. Like obviously, there's only so much you can or want or even should say about things.
And especially within the game industry, which is like a particularly cagey industry.
Sure.
Of like things just are not, because the run up time on release of things, like development takes time, like getting things approved to like be released on consoles takes time, like the approval process takes a while.
I think that being more clear about a lot of this would have helped. In my opinion, I just think in general, just communicating more and better. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to like spill it all, right? But I think just being a little more clear in the communication goes a long way. This community has been so starved for communication that literally anytime someone does say something, there's a large portion of this community that are just like happy to hear it, right? And sometimes it doesn't even have to be like a positive thing. Like they're just happy to hear something, right? And I get that. And I really wish that would change. No,
I specifically remember after Capcom Cup 2 years ago, I think it was Matthew Edwards who just said something along the lines of like, "Yo, I saw what was coming up. I can't say anything, but like, I'm and people are like,
there's a lot in store
it's
ahead,
confirmed,
right?
Shit's coming out, you guys, for this fighting game." Like people fucking blew up, and I'm like, of course, shit's coming out, you guys. Like if you think about it for a minute, like this, like maybe like pump the brakes on your excitement. But to your point though, people are fucking hungry for this shit.
Yeah. And content's one issue, right? Like, but I think just in general, like this is a classic example of like all you had to do was be a little more clear about the communication. And don't get me wrong, there are some very, hardworking, smart people that are working on the communication within that company. But again, it just kind of comes down to, I guess maybe sort of the typical Japanese mentality of like, just don't say a lot. And that, I think that's what has to change. You don't have to say everything. I think people should know that there's not going to be an LCQ stream.
Yeah, I think that might have been important to know, honestly. And not having that information out there might be important.
But this is, I think this is a great example of like all you had to do is just be a little. Look, we're in terms of like this particular patch, simple bullet points like we're disabling these mods because it creates an unfair playing field for both PC and PS4. And the game was designed for crossplay, right? You want the audience, you want a healthy audience and you want them competing against each other, whatever. And, we're making a change that, even if it's like, it might not be a significant change. I don't know if there's more steps after this. So if you don't want to say it's a first step, you can just kind of temper the expectation of like, hey, we're making a change. Honestly, some of you might not even notice it, or it may not change your experience drastically, but there is a change. And then of course, now we have third parties going in and looking at like what's taking place. And for the most part, yeah, it's better. Like most of what I've seen is people are saying, yeah, some of my games still kind of suck, but for the most part, like I'm having good games. And it's the people that are still having the negative experience appear to be the ones that are still being connected with people from like other countries. And I don't know what that's about. But that's probably like, hopefully like the next step is like, what can we do to not, pit Brian F against someone in Argentina? Cause that's really weird.
Yeah. I don't think that the matchmaking has, again, I don't think I can only say I don't think, because this wasn't ever released in a statement, but I don't think that the way that it pulls from matchmaking has changed at all, because
I would assume not, right?
Yeah.
And Max talked about that last night too. He's like, I don't, like, there are clearly going to be enough people after an update playing in North America that the game shouldn't be matching you up with someone in Brazil, right? But it's still doing that, and I don't think that's everyone. But I mean, that is still an issue. So, but if you're going to address these things, I also think, I mean, my mentality is to get out in front of things. And that's just not always the case with a lot of this, because I think that's how you also temper some expectation. And unfortunately, that just doesn't happen often.
I guess to that end, do you think that there was anything that you could have done in your position to have made this a better transition, maybe? Do you think that there's anything that, like, you personally could have influenced that could have made the communication better?
I mean, without going like off the ranch, probably not.
Okay.
And that's just because, when we talk about, like, well, Capcom doesn't care. And I tweeted about that today. I probably said more about that than I should have, but the thing is, a corporation doesn't care about you as a fan or whatever. Maybe, a corporation's job is to, like, sell games and make money, whatever, right? But do the people care? Do the people working on this stuff care? Absolutely. So every time I hear kind of the blanket statement, Capcom doesn't care, it bothers me, because I was part of that. So you're telling me I don't care. And I know that's not explicitly what a lot of people are saying, but especially when I see sort of targeted, like, attacks on, like, the dev team, right?
Right.
Again, I'm not on the dev team, didn't work on that side of things, but I can only assume most of those guys just doing their job. But what I can tell you, the ones that I do know, the ones that I've spent time with, and the ones that are working on this stuff, they care. They absolutely care.
Yeah, they want the stuff to be good. I mean, you look at Seth, which looks to be like a pretty fleshed out character, to be honest. Seth.
I mean, it's wild to me right now in this very moment that we're not talking about how amazing Champion Edition is. And
yeah, we've spent the last 50 minutes talking about a shitty community, but the game itself is, like, really good right now.
It's in the best place it's ever been, and honestly, I thought it was in a pretty good place last year, and now it's in the competitive scene is it's healthy in that the competition is very strong, and it's only going to get better now that there's been tweaks, whatever, and Seth is just fantastic. Even Gil's really cool. Maybe he's not the most viable, I don't know, but, like, man, he looks cool and he does some cool stuff, right?
Yes.
And Seth, just as a character, is amazing. I still want to subscribe to a couple people throwing it out there. I still want to subscribe to the theory that they put Muda Mutahan's move in there because they knew that I love JoJo's, although that was probably in development way before they ever found out I love JoJo's, right? But
I'm pretty sure. I think there might be enough evidence in Street Fighter V itself to say that someone on the dev team, someone in animations, is also a JoJo's fan. There's a stan over there somewhere.
So, what's wild to me is on the Capcom Japan esports team, there's a couple old heads on that team, and I'm talking like they go back as far as, like, X-Men Children of the Atom, Marvel superheroes, X-Men versus Street Fighter days. There is a dude who worked on JoJo's back in the day, and I believe he told me he worked on Jotaro. Now, he's not in development, so I don't know what connection he might have with them.
Right.
Like, if they're even, like, I don't know that they have those conversations, because he's on the esports team now. But I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility. Yeah, like, it's not outside.
Lines being like, hey,
yeah, and those dudes, I love those guys. One of those guys worked on X-Men versus Street Fighter, and when they found out, like, I was a huge fan of those games, because we don't talk like that much. We barely see each other, of course, because you're in different countries or whatever. But when they found out I was, like, a huge, like, X-Men versus Street Fighter is my favorite fighting game, and JoJo's, I love JoJo's, like, we kind of bonded over that, and, like, they I think they actually almost had a newfound respect for me because I don't think they knew like, oh, this guy actually is a huge Capcom like nerd, right? And he goes back that far.
Mm.
But you know, back to Street Fighter Five, like, yeah, I mean, I mean, I still care. I'm out here not necessarily fighting the good fight, but I'm just like, I'm just trying to reiterate to people like, hey, one, the esports team is not the dev team or the brand team. So a lot of your complaints that go to the Capcom fighters, not even the right place.
No.
Two, people at Capcom absolutely care. And three, even though there isn't a dedicated community manager, don't drive them away. Like, I don't want to say they drove me out because I don't think that's what happened, but I definitely feel like
it didn't help.
It didn't help, and a lot of the stuff had such an effect on me that I had to get out.
Right.
For my own, you know, personal like mental health reasons. And I don't want to see that happen to someone like Carolyn. Even if she isn't, or anyone, right? But even if like they aren't the brunt of that, you know,
the fist of the community, let's say,
right? That just seeing that stuff day after day takes its toll on someone.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why, I mean, I look at like, I don't know if anybody pays attention to Rainbow Six Siege, but man, that Six Invitational was amazing. They do amazing stuff over there on the Rainbow Six Siege teams, both the brand and esports. And honestly, it kind of makes me professionally jealous to kind of see like how loved, you know, those teams are, but how, you know, how much like they reciprocate their love for the community. Capcom just doesn't do that.
Do we really think that is that happening in any fighting game? Is there any community or any game that is bouncing off of each other in a positive way, where there's that positive feedback loop of, don't you enjoy this? We do enjoy this. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for being cool. Thanks for not sending us death threats.
I would have said, for a large part, I would have said Tekken 7 until Leroy.
Yeah.
Until there was 6 Leroys in top 8 at Evo, you know, Japan.
Then it got kind of bad all of a sudden.
And again, like, it's so weird, like, for that particular, you know, and a lot of people don't realize, like, you know, I follow Tekken fairly closely. I've been a Tekken player since day one, Tekken 1, right? I've been playing Paul for over 20 years, damn it. Using the same move for over 20 years, okay?
Death Fist still works, apparently.
Yeah, it still works. I can do it 4 times in a row and you'll block it, but you won't expect me to do it the 5th time, and I'll do it and you'll get hit by it. But in general, in fighting games, I think we've seen that we're a little different, right? I think because there's always going to be toxicity in all communities. It's not just games either. It's movies, it's comics. I've been, you know, in comic book communities where it's like it's even worse, right? But I think it's fair to say that in gaming, in particular, the fighting game community is a little different. They're a little more hardcore, right? And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But with that comes, you know, again, these expectations and whatnot. And honestly, like, the understanding the boundaries of having immediate access to a developer or publisher. And so with fighting games, I don't think we see as much as, and look, let's be fair, Siege is kind of in a perfect storm right now. So I can see why there's love going both ways, right? I don't think I can't think of many communities that are like that, as you know, to that level. But with fighting games, I do think though that there's a good relationship, you know, with certain publishers or developers and fans, and I think for the most part, Tekken is there. People just get really worked up about overpowered characters for some reason. It was Geese, then it was Akuma, and then it was Leroy, which, by the way, if they put DLC characters in that suck and you won't play them, you won't buy them.
Yeah, maybe that's the trick.
I mean, Akuma was overpowered from the get-go.
Right. He's always going to be strong.
And as far as I know, he hasn't changed a whole lot in the last 3 or 4 years of Tekken 7, right? So why all of a sudden were people like complaining about it? Anyways,
to your point though, I think that it also stands to like looking back though, even if like Street Fighter was giving you exactly what you wanted, I feel like a lot of people who enjoyed Street Fighter hate on the other games.
Yes, of course, yes. So that's actually a great point, because I was thinking about this today. You know, back in the day when everyone in arcades was like, oh, you know, like I'm gonna play my game, like screw Mortal Kombat, I'm gonna play Street Fighter, right, or whatever, right? There's that mentality, and we still carry and sort of harbor arcade mentality in a lot of ways. And I think we've seen a lot of old heads who have, you know, adapted to the times, who've grown up, move away from that. And I think some more than others, but I think as a community, we really need to move away from that stuff, because I think what we see now, and this is a lot of the discussion about like, oh, why is such and such community or game, you know, always hating on Street Fighter or vice versa or whatever, right? And I think it's just because we've now created a situation with online, you know, internet and social media and Twitter specifically. We've actually compartmentalized, you know, these communities even further. We've driven like a further divide between these communities, right? To where, yes, there are plenty of people who play multiple games, but in large part, there are still people who are like, yo, Street Fighter Netcode sucks. You could play Killer Instinct. Yo, fuck Killer Instinct. Like, what? I mean, Killer Instinct's a good game.
Right.
I mean,
it doesn't like that kind of mentality is trash, because just because,
but it's not my game, so fuck that game. Right?
If you don't hate, you should. If you hate this thing, I mean, I don't know, but I've tried to change that mentality on our Street Fighter over the years, just by saying that, hey, anytime you might have noticed, anytime that there's a new game in the fighting game community, anytime there's a big release, there will be one for Granblue once it is released in the States, worldwide release. But we like to do a congratulations post on we sticky it right up at the top. Yeah. And it's like, hey, if you want to go play this game,
we should be celebrating this stuff.
Go play the game. It's great. Go have. There's so much more to enjoy and have fun with, because it's the community has really never, even for people who have their game, there isn't. I don't know one person who is like influential, or one person who doesn't have something interesting to say within the community who only plays one game. I don't know that person. Like, we all play different games. Like, I play different games. So, like, it just stands to reason that, like, having that mentality of, yo, fuck Street Fighter 5, you know what's cool? Skullgirls. Shouts to the Purple Sharpie. But no,
you know what? I love the way she handles that too, by the way. Like, and I really do appreciate someone like Sharpie, because she, no matter what, she's gonna stand and shill her game, and that's fine. Like,
she's not going to shit on other. Jest, but she does not ever take that stance. She's the best. I love her to death. But yeah, it's that amount of like, why can't we react with love instead of reacting with this outrage and hatred and bigotry? Question mark. Why?
You're right.
Where did that third one snuck in right there to the end? I don't know where that one.
Bigotry. Yeah, I mean, but that wouldn't be cool, right? Or that would show weakness. I mean, that's my thing. I am, for better or worse, I am a sentimental person, and I am an honest person, and I will sometimes I will put stuff out there because I care enough about, I think, my following, and I hope my following cares enough about me to, you know, maybe understand me better, and you know, kind of see what different people are going through. But I mean, I think that we're still in a society where, like, if you love, like, I mean, I love you, Joe, and
oh, I love you too, Mike.
and I'm okay with saying that. I don't have to follow that up with like, yo, no homo, dude. Like, right. You know, we're still not past that, right? And so showing like that kind of affection or emotion is like a weakness, right? So talking about things that we like, that's why I'm always like, talk about things that you like, you enjoy. Like, you don't have to be angry or an asshole like every day. And and it's easier to be negative just in general. That's how we're human beings. We're wired that way, right? It's hard work being positive, but wouldn't you get more satisfaction about talking about something you enjoy versus like constantly talking about the stuff you hate or that you don't like?
But Mike, I only hate it because I love it.
Do you really?
I'm only mad about it and loud because I love it so much and want it to do good, Mike. Don't you know?
I do know.
Fuck off with that. Everybody can fuck off with that.
And you know what?
You're typing that into the response of this show right now. Please stop. That's not.
Just hit backspace on that comment.
Let's get out of here.
And tell me one thing that you love, right?
Yeah.
And that's why.
Be more passionate about the things you care about.
Yeah, like promote the stuff that you look. If you don't like Street Fighter V and you like something else, then promote what you do like. You don't have to shit on something else, but promote what you do like. What are you doing to make your if it's not Street Fighter V, if it's not Street Fighter or whatever, like what are you doing to make your community better? What's your contribution? Even if it's, you don't have to be a tournament organizer. You don't have to be running brackets. You don't have to be like in the, I guess at that level of like the grassroots, right? But even if it's just a matter of like, hey, I think this thing's really cool. Here's something cool about this thing. Check it out.
Right.
It's funny because I've been playing Bloodborne lately on stream. And I've always kind of felt like, so I never beat Bloodborne by myself originally. I had a friend run me through it because it was too hard. I was like, yo, this game's too hard. Fuck this game. And so I recently did sort of a casual, like legit playthrough. And I have a viewer who had gotten to some point in the game and quit because it was too hard. And a week later, he's telling me, yo, I loaded up the game again because I've been watching you play it. And I beat it. And I'm like, whoa, what? Like, I actually had I affected a positive change on someone.
Yeah, no, that has always been my
fighting
response.
games the same way.
When people come, because this has happened before, of people, and especially around the time where Street Fighter V came out, where they were like, "Yo, I don't like this game."
Yeah.
But like, so like, how do you like this game? And I'm still kind of like, I don't know, I give or take it. It's kind of Street Fighter V's whatever. I have fun with it.
Book.
Sure, it's fine. It's a fun game. It's whatever. But to the point, though, my advice is always dig into the community. Like, get those roots in there a little bit more and have an impact on the people who are around you. Because if this person's already coming to me like at an event or in person, like if they're already that deep, then they have the vernacular. They're in the know.
Yes.
They know they can tell the difference. They can guide someone to make some good decisions. So my response is always bounce it back to the people who you can affect and promote from within. It's harder to do, but I don't know. At the same time, I definitely feel you sometimes when it's like the spirit of Marvel can die in you over and over again, sometimes twice. But won't get into that one. Before we kind of head into the end of the show, though, because we're kind of running up against it, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that you didn't get the chance to, that you wanted to maybe cover before we end it?
I mean, we kind of touched on it, but man, Champion Edition and Seth in general, like, God, I am just so proud of the team, for all the teams that were involved, for the work they've done on that.
What do you like about it specifically?
As someone who, I guess I can admit, I don't know if it's a secret, but like as someone who doesn't play this game regularly.
And kind of an aside, let me put a little aside and kind of make that sound okay. Because what I always say is the deeper you get into the community, the less you actually play the games. Like I only play fighting games once a week, and it's before the tournament that we stream for like that 30-ish minutes. That's the only time I get to play.
When you're exposed to it as much as like I have been, I'm a big fan of competition, though. I'm a huge fan of competition. I mean, that's why I really liked transitioning from like sort of traditional games media into like, competitive fighting game
Esports management.
Journalism, yeah. And then going, into the esports management part of it, right? So I'm super excited whenever we get an update like this to see what the players, I mean, obviously what the players think, but just to see what the players are going to do with it. And I think that from an esports standpoint, things aren't perfect, but I do appreciate, especially with something like Street Fighter League, but I do appreciate how last year we kind of got to see like the middle, I call it the middle class. I don't know if that's really the right phrasing, but the middle class of like players get spotlighted.
The middle America class.
Yeah, exactly, right? They're not exactly top tier players, right? They're not the top players, but they're not, I mean, they're definitely not scrubs either, right?
Right.
They're not low online. But I like seeing them spotlighted because now, they are getting a little more exposure that maybe they deserve, but these guys are working harder too.
Yeah, the grind is on out there.
Yeah, NuckleDo, Rob, and Dual Kevin are all living together now, and I think that's just going to make Rob and I mean all of them, but Rob and Dual Kevin, you're definitely going to see, I think, the gains from that. But yeah, having a new for whatever we're going to call it season, I think is fantastic for competition. I think the game is in probably the best place it's ever been, and we thought it was in a really good place last year, right?
Yeah.
We as in community, not Capcom, but as a community, I feel like we competitively we thought it was in a really good place. So I think this year, I'm really excited to see, how the competition shakes out. Obviously now I'm on the sidelines, so I guess I can look at it from my not work perspective anymore. And maybe it'll
get to be a fan now.
Exactly. I get to be a fan and it'll be a little more fun. But also like seeing how the last few character releases have been received, because they are original, right? They are different. Max again brought it up in a stream. Somebody was like, "Hey, do you think you'll ever play Ken again?" And he's like, "I don't think so, because most of those, most of that first batch of characters feels kind of dry in terms of like the rest of the last couple seasons or whatever, right? So seeing like the G's, even though like people complain about the robbery, whatever, seeing the G's, the Gills and the Seths, but especially Seth, like Seth looks like such an amazing, like Seth actually kind of makes me want to play. And I'll probably play like a couple games in ranked and get pissed and never play again. But I mean, again, like I'm just super proud of like the work the teams have done to get this champion edition out there. And like I said, watching that trailer for Seth, I hadn't seen it before, and I probably could have, but I got to experience it the first time, just like everyone else in that venue and just like everyone else on stream. And man, I was blown away. And for the most part, it seems like everyone's really enjoying it. So, we'll get back to that. I mean, the netcode stuff will die down. Something else will take its place eventually.
Here's the thing. We're going to run our tournament on Monday, and everybody's going to have a good time again, because like our tournaments are a good, fun time where people like to hang out and enjoy the game. Yeah. Like that shit still happens. Like, surprise, surprise, people are out here like we've had really good attendance, like consistent great attendance, so much so that like it's giving our TO a kind of a rough go of it, but like people
they're showing up.
Yeah, people fucking like to play the game still, and this is like however long, like 4 years after release, like we still out there. So it's a
I think that's a good sign that maybe the game and the player base isn't growing the way Capcom wants it to, but we're still out there, we're still playing, and honestly, Champion Edition and Seth are good ways to get people interested, either new people or old lapsed players, and I mean there should be some emphasis on that. To take care of those players. I'd like to see that. I think I kind of did my best to kind of push that. And I feel like one of my goals working at Capcom, and even in esports in general, is creating opportunities. It doesn't mean everyone's going to get paid, but I mean creating opportunities. And I think that in the last few years, what has happened that is a great thing is there's been opportunities for players, both as like competitors, but also like, to grow their brands, to do things they've never done before. There's a hell of a lot more commentators. There's way more, there's way more TOs than there were, a few years ago. Weeklies, monthlies, whatever, right? You got SenCal Standoff is on the Pro Tour, and I know Sierra's like super proud of that and she's super stoked about that, and she deserves it. She's done a good job, just like Armando has with Undefeated. So seeing opportunities like that pop up and giving people those opportunities. I think we just want to be involved with what we're passionate about, and sometimes it's not about making money. Most of the times you don't get to make money. But I feel like if anything, what I hope I was able to do is create more opportunities for people.
Fair enough. All right, with that, time to head into the final segment of the show.
All right.
I can't let you go without asking you a line of questions.
Okay.
I think I might know the answer to to the first question.
Okay.
Can I guess it, actually?
Yes.
The question is, what is your favorite normal attack in any fighting game?
Oh, jeez. You already know. Everyone knows this.
Sabretooth.
It's a religion to me.
I mean, it's so thick and fat, and it's cheating, actually.
It is literally the greatest. When you push that button, it's literally the greatest feeling in the world.
All right, so describe to the people what your favorite normal is and why.
What I ask people, and occasionally I'll troll and bring this up on Twitter too, and with the screenshot, of course. What do you know about jump roundhouse? My favorite thing actually to do is ask Marvel players who are younger, who might not know anything about jump roundhouse. And, if we're at like a CEO or a combo breaker, what do you know about jump roundhouse? Like, what are you talking about? Let me tell you about let me show you about jump roundhouse. And that, of course, is Sabretooth and X-Men versus Street Fighter. If you've never seen it, James has somewhere online, James Chen has this massive text, this wall of text, a rant about Sabretooth. Because he's like, scrubby. At one point I had screenshotted it and put it in my Twitter profile because it's so great, it's so amazing. But it's just the way, like, it's fast, it's deceptively fast. It hits in front, it hits behind, whether you're crossing up or not. It hits low, it hits high. Like, it's just the best button ever created. He stretches his whole body out with his feet like extended, like the sound that he makes when he I mean, dude, it is literally the greatest button ever created. Thank you. Thank you, Capcom.
It's a jumping attack that cannot be anti-aired anyway.
There's like one character that can truly anti-air that, like,
consistently. It's fucking wild. But like, all right.
I'll never forget hitting Ninja Nam in the corner with it. He thought I was going to cross him up. He was trapped in the corner. I had him locked down in the corner. He thought I was going to cross him up, and I hit in the front, and he literally was like, what side is this hitting on? I don't get it.
A button that just makes you go like, I don't understand.
I actually was so deep, I thought I was going to cross him up, and I didn't.
That's my favorite mix-up, is where the person who's doing the mix-up doesn't know what side it's going to land on.
I don't know what side it's hitting on, but you know what? You're getting hit by it, so.
If I don't know, how could you know? That's
exactly.
the best.
Yeah.
All right. Kind of in that same line of questioning, what is your favorite combo in any fighting game and why?
Oh my God, my favorite combo?
You don't necessarily have to be able to do the combo.
Well, most of them I wouldn't be able to.
Fair. Fair enough.
I'm actually going to give a shout outs to like JoJo's games, because those games are so busted, and I could cheat and say all of them. So when I started streaming more regularly after leaving Capcom, I was streaming JoJo's a lot, and I probably should get back to it because I'd never played it before. It was in the arcades. I remember when it was in arcades, but no one ever played it, right? We didn't know shit about JoJo's back then. But I've been playing Black Polnareff and Avdol, and they have some pretty cool combos. But I kept getting matched up against Vanilla Ice players, and that character has some stupid ass combos. So I'm like, I'm tired of dying to this shit. I'm gonna start playing Vanilla Ice, and I can't consistently do the stupid ass combos. But man, let me tell you, that character's got some stupid Just go Google that shit. Go look it up on YouTube. That character's got some stupid combos, and I like it.
As someone who I know of the games, I know I've seen them played a couple of times, but I wouldn't be able to describe exactly what this would look
what
like.
it is there's the characters, right? There's each character you select. There's a couple that don't have stands, but they have stands, quote unquote stands, right? The stands are like the powers that JoJo's characters have. So in the case of Jotaro, who is like the main character in Stardust Crusaders, he has Star Platinum. Star Platinum is the one that you see like the Muda Muda hands. So like Seth's Muda Muda, 100 hands move, right? So Vanilla Ice has a stand that when you pop a particular super, you can basically do like almost an infinite. I think you actually can do an infinite with him. But you just keep mashing buttons and you end up with like a 60 hit combo. And most of the JoJo's characters are actually like that. But there's something just really cheesy about Vanilla Ice as a character. He's just really corny and really. I don't normally play what I think are cheap characters, and he's pretty cheap.
Well, I will say that
although some people would call Colleen cheap, and I do play Colleen.
It has taken me a great deal of effort to not make a Vanilla Ice pun, but that's the show, folks.
Do you know why he's named Vanilla Ice?
Well, I know.
Or do you know about the JoJo's lore?
I know enough about JoJo's lore to know that they use a lot of like musical music references,
bands,
like
bands and,
band names,
and,
like Dio
and,
is is referenced in like album names and shit like that, which I respect.
Like there's one of the characters in, I think it's part 2, his name's AC/DC, and there's cars, so yeah, they're actually named after like bands and one of my favorite characters from the most recent season, which I guess is part 5. His stand is Sex Pistols, and they're just like 6 different bullets.
Anime is bad.
It's amazing. God, I love JoJo's.
Anime
and somehow we got onto
JoJo's
topic. This episode is done. Signed, sealed, and delivered.
Yeah.
We got to talk about JoJo's.
I think that's it.
Also, I think if I really want to pick out like a legit combo, there is nothing. I still get goosebumps when I watch the Daigo parry, the Evo moment 37.
Fair enough.
When you see when you see him just land that combo,
classic answer.
Man, and the crowd,
reminds you of what's good about fighting games.
Yes, it does. And I mean, that combo alone, that video alone, got people into fighting games.
That is true. It has been oftentimes the most referenced thing. What people bring up of like, I don't know what this was, but hot damn, was that exciting? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I could tell people in that room were very excited.
Yeah, right? I wish I could do that.
Yeah,
I'm trash.
honestly.
I can't do that.
All right, though. That will do it for us on this week's episode of RSF Radio. That will do it. Before we sign off, though, Mike, where can people find you on the internet?
The twitters.com at bizarro_Mike. That's 1 Z, 2 R's. And like I said earlier, if you want to watch any of my streams, twitch.tv/bizarro_Mike. There is no underscore in that. Sorry.
All right. And you can find me at Super Joe Monday or at RedditSF on Twitter.com, or head on over to our Street Fighter. Post whatever. I will see it. I'm there all the time. I'll check it out. Don't be a bigot. That'll do it for the show. Catch us every Thursday-ish. I might just post this one as soon as possible. I don't think we need to go back and edit. Just just fly through the pants, because
throw it up there.
Well, the release date of this show has just been kind of all over the board since the new year, because like shit kind of hit the fan for me personally at the start of the year, which I'm not going to get into, but like I'm kind of just rolling with it now.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Yes, I'm living in my bliss. I'm living my love right now, and I love you. And goodbye. That'll be a show. Put Keith's Gym in Street Fighter 5. But why isn't Michael Martin?
Yes.
Why isn't Geef's Gym in Street Fighter V? Why haven't they just put that tutorial in the game?
I want to say it's probably for the same reason that Sodom never gets put in these games as a playable character, and they know he's my favorite character.
You don't have to answer the question.
They know. He's stuck in the background of every single game. Why?
Yeah, that is true. Huh.
3 games in a row, he's like in a stage background. They know he's my favorite character.
They know. They're just gonna tease it. They're gonna tease it. All right. Well, that'll do it. Enough's enough. I'm ending this show. Until next time, folks, take care. Peace.